Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. You guys know on Saturday we like to talk about TikTok videos, and tonight I got some about the Rittenhouse case. Tonight I got some I got this really funny one with Fergie. Oh my gosh. I was dying. It's probably like one of my top favorite TikToks now. I was just dying laughing. You guys are gonna think it's so fun. I think it's funny. Some about COVID, and some that are just funny, and some about CRT. We're gonna rebut a bit. So should be an interesting night. I do want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on the website. Make sure that you guys are sign up for email, that you guys are liking my post and sharing my stuff all across all the social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. All my handles are at Black Tea News on those platforms. The only one that is different is Twitter, and at Twitter it's at True Black Tea. Make sure that you guys are going to the website and checking out the different merch that I have, like the goat hoodie for sure. I got the I am not the victim you're looking for. Be better, not better, which a lot of activists could really take a chill pill and probably listen to that message and do a lot of good. My money, my business, for those people who want to kick you out of the abortion debate. There's that. And then there's a pumpkin spice stuff with a little chippy Trump on it. And you guys can get that also in the shirts too. It is unisex. And we got all kinds of goodies. I love the You Are Not That Special and black tea stuff. So before we jump into everything, I do want to also encourage you, if you would like to donate to Black Tea News, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate. Obviously I appreciate every thing you guys do to support. And if you would like to help Black Tea go further, faster, I'd really appreciate it. I was telling somebody the other night, like, how my TikTok where it's at and like how many people follow me on there, and they're like, well, how long have you had your platform? I said since February. Like, wow, oh my gosh. So they were really impressed with the growth, but we can do more, guys. So if you would like to support, please consider supporting in that kind of way. And also you can buy merchandise, but if you want to do direct donation, I appreciate it so much. So let's jump into the tickety talks, as I like to call them. And let's start off with the C.S. Lewis quote. Someone brought up this quote, and I think it's so dead on for today and the world of panic that we have going on. And just a little reminder that we've faced tougher times before, and for the world to just shut down the way that it is, it's really insane.
So I found this old C.S. Lewis quote and thought it would be perfect to apply it to whatever it needed to be applied to today. In one way, we think a great deal too much of the atomic bomb. How are we to live in an atomic age? I am tempted to reply, why, as you would have lived in the 16th century when the plague visited London almost every year, or as you would have lived in a Viking age when raiders from Scandinavia might land and cut your throat any night, or indeed as you are already living in an age of cancer, an age of syphilis, an age of paralysis, an age of air raids, an age of railway accidents, an age of motor accidents. In other words, do not let us begin by exaggerating the novelty of our situation. Believe me, dear sir or madam, you and all whom you love were already sentenced to death before the atomic bomb was invented, and quite a high percentage of us were going to die in unpleasant ways. We had indeed one very great advantage over our ancestors, anesthetics, but we have that still. It is perfectly ridiculous to go about whimpering and drawing long faces because the scientists have added one more chance of a painful and premature death to a world which already bristled with such chances, and in which death itself was not a chance at all, but a certainty. This is the first point to be made, and the first action to be taken is to pull ourselves together. If we are all going to be destroyed by an atomic bomb, let that bomb, when it comes, find us doing sensible and human things. Praying, working, teaching, reading, listening to music, bathing the children, playing tennis, chatting to our friends over a pint and a game of darts. Not huddled together like frightened sheep and thinking about bombs. They may break our bodies, a microbe can do that, but they need not dominate our minds. True in 1948 and true today.
So yeah, people had other things to freak out about, and people had to learn to go on with life. And that's something that I decided to do a long time ago. So, I've been over this pandemic for a while now. You guys need to get on my level. Um, and I guess I always sort of felt that way, but something that really rang true, a friend of ours, longtime friend, she knew me since I was just a little girl, passed away. She was a church member and she died of cancer, not COVID. And her final moments are time that we won't get back because of COVID. And they were keeping it pretty close to the chest. The family was, her condition, but definitely that did shut down contact down, because they didn't want, she was vulnerable and didn't want that to spread and stuff, but she's still gone. And just the small amount of people who go to the funeral, and think about even when my dad was sick in the hospital, I don't think how we decided to treat all these things, how we reacted to these things, were the best way. I don't think that people were better in the hospital because they were isolated from their families. I really don't. I think people could have probably held on longer if they had the comfort of the people with them while they were fighting, rather than just calling them up to see them as they gasp for their last breaths of air. So, anyway, you better learn to live life while you have it, because everyone is going to be condemned to die at some point in time, and whether it's COVID that gets you, which we know by the numbers is really unlikely, and certainly depending on your age and any kind of underlying condition. But now they're trying to freak you out and make your kids get it, and they got Big Bird taking it, and they got Pfizer running commercials saying be a superhero, take the vaccine. And when your kids are fine, there's no reason for people to be so scared for their kids. I've showed you guys a graph plenty of times that shows that suffocation is just as likely to kill your kids at that age bracket than COVID, and that's all very rare. So please just go to try to live your life as normally as possible. President Trump said something that was really wise that people didn't want to take to heart. He said we can't let the cure be worse than the virus, and we definitely got there. We definitely got there very fast, and we don't really want to let it go. So we need to learn to let that go and start resuming life as normally as possible. But Biden and them will not do that because they want as much power as possible. Here is another COVID related well, that wasn't necessarily a COVID related video, but you could obviously relate that to today. But this is a COVID related video with the CDC. It's very interesting.
Did you know that the CDC changed the definition of vaccine on their website? This is an email correspondence between CDC workers and saying, does this definition need to be updated? It used to be the act of introducing a vaccine into the body to produce immunity to a specific disease. And then they changed it to the act of introducing a vaccine into the body to produce protection from a disease. Why in the world, after all of these years, would you need to make a change? After all of these years, why would you need to make a change? Now, we always have to make sure that this is what actually happened. So let's go to the CDC. Sure enough, we find that under vaccination, the act of introducing a vaccine into the body to produce protection from a specific disease. Why? That's all. Why?
How interesting. Another thing that's pretty interesting, if you guys don't know, someone did a FOIA request for the CDC. They said, hey, we want to know the data, what kind of data you guys have on people who were infected naturally and their sort of natural immunity and stuff to COVID, and if they've infected other people. And the CDC could not give them this information because they don't collect that kind of data. So riddle me this, Batman. Why isn't CDC collecting data to see if people who are naturally infected with COVID are spreading the disease to other people? So if you've received natural immunity, the CDC does not know if, or at least they're not collecting data on whether or not you are infecting other people. Isn't that interesting? I would think that's something we want to know, because they're doing all these mandates, which has been blocked. It was blocked by the courts and it was upheld, blocked by the court, which is great. It could still go all the way to Supreme Court, I guess, and they'll probably shoot it down too. Biden's just pressing his luck. So people at your jobs, please hold out a little bit longer if you can. Write them a strongly worded letter that says, hey, you know what? The courts have blocked this. And if you choose to I guess discriminate against your workers and make this a condition of employment, just know that the government has been forced to stop this order, and you aren't doing this under the umbrella of the government, but it'll be a choice that the company has decided to make. So I'm not a lawyer, but and you can always ask your lawyer friends about it, but that's my 2 cents on I helped somebody else when they were writing to their company about the compliance and mandates and stuff. And so you can just let that be known, that people know that, hey, the government's not making you do this. OSHA doesn't have that rule in place. The courts they're going to shoot them down. So if that's the case, then why are you forcing me to get this then? Because they just, no, they don't. I understand companies don't want to be inconvenienced with these huge fines that OSHA claim that they're going to give to people. So I get them. They're just trying to get compliant. They want to get ready, and as early as possible, but they need to know that, hey, it's not constitutional. It's gravely unconstitutional. So it's just curious that if you have natural immunity, which isn't baked in, which the courts did acknowledge, like you don't, there's so many things you guys didn't consider, other than the fact that it's an overreach. There's just things that don't make sense in the realm of common sense. So if you have natural immunity, can you still spread COVID? Are you a risk to people? The CDC doesn't care, apparently, because they're not collecting that data. The CDC collects all kinds of data, but they don't collect they're not collecting data on that. Could it be because they don't want to know the answer to that, because they have a particular agenda that they want to push? I think so. So we know that they're changing the definitions of what a vaccine is, because their vaccine doesn't give you immunity. It just protects you more than, if you just get it on your own. And people's ideas of herd immunity is also different too, because everyone's saying that you have to be vaccinated, as opposed to people experiencing natural immunity from getting infected naturally. They're saying everybody needs to get vaccinated for herd immunity, with no consideration to, did you actually have it and do you still have the antibodies? And I don't know how long they last for everyone, but my dad had COVID in November last year, and he went to the doctor, I think last month, and he still had his antibodies for COVID. And I think there's more intense tests, I guess, that you can get that are more expensive, that can make it's more kind of complicated, but it'll let you know if you're really, really, really immune, I guess. But people aren't pushing that because it's expensive. But I think it's funny that the CDC doesn't want to know. So that's something to bring up to your terrified lib friends, I guess, to try to keep the process of the red pill going. Which, by the way, speaking of red pills, people watching this Kyle Rittenhouse case, I've seen quite a few people say that they have a total different perception now because the media had them convinced a different way about the case, and after watching it, they're like, "This isn't what I thought it would be at all." There's a pretty big hedge fund manager who was watching the trial with his wife, and he wrote a long post about it. And he said, Kyle Rittenhouse, he seems like a kid who's trying to do his civic duty. He, is a volunteer firefighter and does police, like, I guess police kind of program that they had for young kids, and he went there to help the community, and he was cleaning off graffiti, and then he got into a bad situation, and he did act in self-defense. And so the media actually contacted them and said, has your account been hacked? Because they could not fathom a Democrat looking at the evidence and saying, oh shoot, I was wrong. So I guess it tells you a thing about the media, which is crazy because the media they have access to all the facts, but yet still Good Morning America had Gage Grosserwitz, or I don't know how to say his last name. Gage, the person who was shot by Kyle Rittenhouse, who survived, the one who like admitted on the stand that he pointed his gun at Kyle, and that's when Kyle shot him. He's changing his story. He's on Good Morning America and CNN, and I don't understand. I gotta stop saying that. I keep saying I don't understand why the media, like, I understand but the media is at this point trying to inflame riots and trying to inflame hostilities, and it doesn't make any sense. They're more devoted to their narrative than people's lives. And just like a lot of people were rioting and stuff, looting last year, and people were advocating for it or pushing it on, egging it on because their narrative was too important. The media has created a narrative that they don't want to let go. And I talked about that yesterday. Don Lemon and they went on a rant that just, at this point, they sound like full on communists talking about how dare you want to protect property, and this attitude that you can just protect stuff is entitled. I'm like, what? So you can go and watch yesterday's show, and that's basically what I talked about the whole time was Don Lemon, because it was a short show, so you can go ahead and watch it. But it's really crazy. It's really crazy. Someone said they had an elderly family member who's fully vaccinated booster, and she's currently recovering from COVID. There's a music star. I can't think of his name, but he got the booster shot and it numbed up his nerves and like inflamed a condition that he had so much that he couldn't play. And so he was just open about it. And then Rolling Stone did a hit piece talking about how he's an anti-vaxxer and mentioned like his past with, I don't know, drugs and other kind of stuff like that, trying to discredit him. And of course, how is he an anti-vaxxer? He just took a booster shot. He got sick with a booster shot. And then Joy Reid apparently said something about him too. My brother was telling me about it. So it's pretty insane, the world that we live in, that they're so devoted to this craziness. But I want to get back to the Rittenhouse case, because I do actually have some I have a few funnies, and I have one that's pretty serious that a lot of you probably saw. I didn't realize after I posted this video on TikTok that it got so many views. But since I mentioned it, I will play this one first.
Gonna lose some followers for this one, but I don't give a shit. If you've used the words alligator tears to describe this testimony right here, you can just go ahead and click that unfollow button, because you're a special piece of shit. Now I'm gonna say why. I know what PTSD looks like. That's it. That's it right there. That's absolute shell fucking shock. I've seen it. Seen it many times. I've seen guys walking out of a truck or walking away from a truck, pointing back at a truck, unable to talk, and all they can do is cry. So don't be trying to tell me that this kid isn't experiencing actual trauma. He has absolute remorse for what he did. And he's traumatized by the events that happened. And yeah, if you go looking for trouble, you'll probably find it. If you go looking for blood, you'll probably find it. The whole situation shouldn't have happened to begin with. But you shouldn't punish him, or even think he should be punished, for defending his life. This is rough to watch. It's rough to watch because I've seen it before. Not this testimony. This face. And it sucks. Oh yeah, like I said, click that unfollow button if you disagree.
So yeah, I shared that yesterday on my Facebook page. I didn't realize how many shares it got and how many comments it had. I think last I looked it was over 500. Maybe it was over 500 comments, or maybe it was fake 500 likes and stuff. I don't know. It was it was a big reaction from people, and it's amazing when people try to say that was fake. That totally looked like I'm emotional. I'm trying to contain this, but I cannot. I am absolutely overwhelmed. And I've had a few situations like that where I've belted out tears like that. But obviously, I can't say obviously. But I haven't had that kind of experience, or anything like this man in this video was saying. But I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. And I got into it with some people who believed that, or mocked him and like he was faking. And that was quite some impressive method acting there. But I think it just makes more sense that he had a spontaneous burst of emotion. And then the defense did also reveal that he's being treated for his post-traumatic stress. They did reveal that. So I got into it with a lot of people about it. Well, quite a few people. And also knowing when you just burst like that, because in a moment when I have bursts, I'm just like, I don't want to be like this in front of other people. And so obviously people are going to mock him because there's just some cynical folks who are so addicted to their ideology. That's all they want to talk about. That's all they want to focus on. Their ideology. So in their eyes, this is an evil, racist, terrible kid, and he's faking. He feels no remorse. That's the monster they painted in their minds. So would you want to get on the stand and risk everything, right? Because the prosecution was terrible at this point, and everything pointed to self-defense. Kyle didn't need to get on the stand. I think he did help his case. I think he did a good job. But that was a big risk. So if they risked it all just to see if Kyle could pull off that kind of emotion, that's stupid. You guys aren't thinking straight. You're just not thinking straight. So I poor kid. So anyway, let's laugh at the prosecution. There's all kinds of TikToks where they're making fun of the craziness that happened. Here's the judge had to keep making rulings or interrupt the prosecution. It seemed like they were trying to get the case thrown out, or at least that's what some people said. I think they're just throwing anything to the wall to see if it sticks, because I they could always have just, I don't know, not tried this and embarrassed themselves. And there's no guarantee that if they do get a mistrial and they retry this, that it's going to go in their favor. So I think they're just corrupt. They're just corrupt. So this is a little snippet from audio of the judge when he had to chastise the prosecution.
Why would you think that made it okay for you, without any advance notice, to bring this matter before the jury? I was astonished when you began your examination by...
So if you didn't see that, it says them bringing up my Mario Kart record when they were discussing my speeding tickets. So and that's just to make a joke about the Call of Duty. They asked Kyle on the stand, did he play Call of Duty? He's like, yeah. He's like, well, don't you kill people in the game? He's like, it's just a video game. So and actually people have been making fun of that too as well.
Mr. Rittenhouse, have you ever played Call of Duty? We have. Have you ever killed somebody? Did you like it?
Yes, it's just so silly how the prosecution is. Asking the craziest stuff. Like at one point it was like, what was a sense of urgency? He's like, I was trying to put out a fire. He's like, why was it urgent? He's like, because there was a fire. I mean, apparently he likes to talk, but I don't understand why it, like, going for so long with the dumb questions. The defense needed to, I don't know, step in and do some more, because maybe they had Kyle on the stand for so long because they were trying to make him tired, so he just, I don't know, collapse on himself and they could just get him to say whatever. But the prosecution is just awful, and I hope Kyle can go ahead and sue them for malicious prosecution. I hope they can go after Biden and CNN and a ton of other people for slandering this poor kid about all this kind of nonsense. Someone else mocked the liberal ideology going into this case.
Today's story, we have ongoing coverage of the developing trial for Kyle Rittenhouse.
Oh yeah, that white supremacist who killed like 100 minorities last year.
For those who don't remember, Kyle was the 17-year-old who shot 3 white people at the Kenosha riots in late 2020.
The kid's still an active shooter.
Last week, the prosecution had their time to present their case, but many other witnesses actually ended up giving a positive testimony for Rittenhouse.
I don't understand. The kid was the aggressor. He was literally ruining their riot.
One witness in particular confirmed that before shooting one of the rioters, he was assaulted with a skateboard to the back of the head.
Okay, but like, just because a child rapist is trying to bash your skull in doesn't give you the right to defend yourself.
This week, the defense started their case and the prosecution walked away from day one with a major upset in the trial.
I don't understand. This should have been a slam dunk for the prosecution. I mean, we have so much feelings and political bias on our side.
The third rioter, who was shot in the arm by Kyle, testified himself that Kyle did not shoot until the rioter pulled his gun on him.
Okay, but like, it's illegal for Republicans to defend themselves when a leftist is upset. Like, is the judge forgetting this?
The trial is beginning to look like an acquittal for Kyle Rittenhouse.
It's illegal for Republicans to defend themselves. Yeah, that's what it seems like they're going with, though, right? He had a gun, so he obviously went in there to make the situation worse. Why would you? Okay, well, you can argue whether he should have been there or not. There's plenty of evidence that Kyle was trying to be a good Samaritan. Really, there is. But he was there, and just why would you go there and not have a gun? Why would you not be armed, knowing that they were burning and looting and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, hurting people as well? That people have died at these riots. So why wouldn't you be armed? Why wouldn't you be armed, period, going somewhere? It would have been illegal if Kyle carried a pistol. The law allowed him to carry that gun that he had. So what's your argument? That people shouldn't have a right to self-preservation? That the intent doesn't matter? According to Don Lemon and stuff, the media pushing it, sure, I guess that's what they're going with. But we do have a right to defend ourselves, and we get into an altercation. You can say you shouldn't have been there all day long, but you can still be armed. You can still be armed to protect yourself. So the people have the absolute nuttiest opinions about this. Here's one more about the Rittenhouse case that I got, and this is, people don't like the judge because the judge is fair. And this judge, God bless him, but he's 70 years old, and there's not gonna be a lot of judges like him left, I think, in the world. especially since you have George Soros, like getting all these people in positions of power and paying and stuff. And we have like prosecutors and so on that don't believe in justice or any sort of thing. So, like even in Loudoun County, you have someone who's like a left-wing prosecutor who's like soft on crime, but wanted to personally prosecute the father who disrupted a school board meeting because he was upset because his daughter was raped in the bathroom and they were like covering it up. So that's the kind of person that they're willing to go after. But if you're just, I don't know, some kind of like hardened criminal, we got to give you a slap on the wrist. I have questions about why Rosenbaum, the first guy, was even out there. The first one who Kyle killed in self-defense. He was a mentally ill serial child rapist. Why was he out there? They said he just came out of a mental institution after he tried to commit suicide and stuff. Like, so you just let him into the wild? What? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Our society is broken. Our society is broken. I wonder how many people know that they're all upset because this child rapist got killed. And I'm not saying that Kyle should have been out there and been judge, jury, and executioner, but that's not what he was doing either. He was clearly defending himself. But people are mad that this judge, because he's fair. And they were mad that he had a ringtone.
The judge's phone went off playing a certain song. Take a look at the video.
The actions that I talked about.
That song happens to be God Bless the USA, a song by a Trump supporter who performed at Donald Trump's inauguration and was also Trump's campaign song in 2016 and 2020. Yeah, given the political nature of this case, that screams bias to me.
So because the judge has God Bless the USA by Lee Greenwood set as his ringtone, that's enough information for you to determine that he's a biased actor because he likes his country, because he likes the song. I love J. Cole. I'm a huge Forest Hills fan. But based on some of the things I've heard J. Cole say, I don't think that we'd really align politically. Harry, I hope you didn't hurt your arm stretching so hard.
So Harry, that first kid in the video complaining about the God Bless America, and he was not alone. There was other people. Oh my gosh, people were talking about on Twitter and stuff, going crazy because the creator of God Bless America voted for Trump and is a Trump supporter, and they play that song at Trump rallies. Just a little FYI, they play a lot of songs at Trump rallies, a lot of classic rock, but I guess Trump likes, but always I Want It That Way played a lot. I don't know, he's playing a lot in 2020 because I don't think I went to one in maybe 2020, but I went to, I don't know, maybe like at least 5 of them, maybe more. I mean, like specific Trump rallies or Trump / Pence rallies. I went to quite a few of them, and they had like the same soundtrack that like everyone, but they had I Want It That Way playing a lot. And I think I did delete this video, but I did have on my phone for a while. Maybe I emailed it to myself. People singing to the song I Want It That Way, and Ronna McDaniel, who's the chair of the RNC. I did have that, them kind of lip sync battling it a bit. It wasn't a battle, but they were lip syncing along, kind of acting it out. Just having fun. But just because God Bless the USA plays, and doesn't mean the judge is biased because he loves his country, which is so crazy. Because speaking of Trump, do you guys remember when Trump was a candidate and there was a judge who was Hispanic, and there was some kind of group La Raza or something that Trump claimed that he was in support of or something, and so he was biased in a case against him, and the media and politicians just thought that was so disgusting. Now, I'm not saying it's good that Trump accused a judge of being biased, but biases can happen. That is the truth. But they were so disgusted by the fact that Trump could even suggest that, but they are willing to do that and say that because this judge played God Bless him, God Bless the USA on his ringtone. Maybe he just loves the country, and that you used to not just be a Republican thing, by the way. It used to not be just a Republican thing. And there's one TikTok I saw Ben Shapiro react to it, but it was a really big one with someone complaining about the American flag, because the American flag, like they've taken it now, the Republicans, and it's like another Trump flag basically, that they think that's what they think when they see that. That's crazy. We did not make the flag polarized. We didn't make the flag polarized, but you decided to do that yourself. You decided to do that yourself. Trump supporters didn't take the American flag and say, this is our flag. It's everybody's flag. Everybody should be proud to be an American. But they're the ones who disassociated themselves with it. Sheesh. So that's the kind of crazy commentary that exists, but I'm sure you guys are aware of it surrounding the Rittenhouse case. We'll see what happens next week with the trial and what the jury will say. I hope this kid gets off and he sues everyone, every penny they got, just everybody. Oh my gosh, I hope they sue. So let's change gears a bit. So you guys know there's a lot of people like to race bait online. So here's a fairly big channel on TikTok that decided to attack a lot of other Black conservatives. So pretty disgusting. I first saw that video attached. Someone had replied to it, and they were like, "When am I going to be able to get into a collage?" And so I was kind of half like, "Am I going to be in the collage? Did I make it into a collage yet?" But not quite, I guess. So I do follow, and I'm friends with quite a few people that made it into that collage, and there are people who say absolutely common sense things all the time. One of those people is pretty famous. She works with PragerU. She used to be a BLM activist and had a conversion. But it's just really amazing to me how many people will get upset because Black Republicans will have a different idea. And it's not exclusive to Black Republicans. I mean, people are offended, by white people who decide to vote Republican, like, oh, these darn women. And they'll group them in some kind of way. These uneducated men, these uneducated white women, they always have to group them and they have to blame them. I understand that there's statistics and there's demographics and people want to understand them, but people are always like, oh, these dumb hicks, But particularly if you are Black, if you are Asian, if you are Hispanic, if you are Native American, if you are gay, if you are trans, if you are some kind of other that, they think that they're supposed to protect and the group belongs to them, they get so mad if you do not fit in their little bubble, and if you leave the bubble. And they call you all kinds of names, and that's what they go to. I got into a spat with someone earlier this week, and they were reading white fragility on their live, chastising a white person, and they were arguing about the Kyle Rittenhouse case, and she said only white people are supporting Kyle because he's white, and Black people wouldn't support him. So I replied and said, a lot of white people are against Kyle Rittenhouse and are the ones spreading misinformation, and I'm Black and I can just look at the facts, and that's why I can see that he did everything in self-defense. So they called me sort of cooning names and stuff like that, and they did a reply video, but they blocked me before I could watch it. And I'm not, once you like start calling me racial slurs and stuff, I'm not like too keen to have a political debate with you anyway. So I wasn't sure if I was going to watch her reply anyway, because what kind of dialogue productive dialogue could we have had at that point? I thought about still watching it though, but I had a show to get ready for, so I'm like, I don't want to, if it's like too spicy and I want to reply, I didn't want to get distracted with the itch of it. But here's a question to these people, whether they're Black or white. Oh my gosh, white libs can also have the same sort of attitudes and call black people coons and white supremacists if they're Republicans. It's the most obscene thing in the world. Why do you think that it's the black Republicans who are the sellouts? If you look at Kamala Harris, she was stood on the debate stage and basically said Joe Biden was the one keeping her from integrating in schools. So if other people can point to him being a segregationist and she's willing to try to, I don't know, cut his knees off at the debate and stuff, which didn't help her no good. Nobody really supported her at all. She had to drop out before she got embarrassed about losing California, her home state. So if she can just jump on Biden's team, why isn't someone like her a coon? Why is it someone like Tim Scott a coon, but not like Kamala Harris? Who I didn't understand, like, opportunity of a lifetime, right? Heartbeat away from the presidency from with a decrepit old man who's very old and not all there with it. So there's a pretty good chance she'll be president. Unfortunately, I hope not. And he's bad, but oh my gosh, I can't stand her. She was my least favorite out of all their groups, like the whole entire group. She's my absolute least favorite because she's so wildly insincere. With her Jussie Smollett stuff, she's not a moron. She knew that was fake, pushing that garbage. And other stuff, like how she acted in Kavanaugh's hearing and other hearings. I just don't like Kamala Harris. I think she's so incredibly insincere. You'd probably be the most insincere person in politics. I can't stand her. But why isn't someone like Kamala Harris considered a sellout for selling out to Biden, a man who she called a segregationist? And so when she was confronted by Stephen Colbert on his show about, hey, you said some pretty terrible things during the debate to Joe Biden. You really went after him. And she just starts laughing. She says, it was a debate. Well, no, at a debate, you can argue issues. You talk about policies. And I guess to be fair, I guess she did bring up a policy, but that's a heck of a thing to accuse Joe Biden of being a white supremacist. And then you turn around and say, oh, sure, I'll be your VP. And she didn't you don't have to reach all the way back to those policies of segregating the schools. You could just go back to the racist stuff he said on the campaign. As a matter of fact, that's why he needed to have a black person do it. There's a group of black people got together. Charlemagne was like one of the people who signed on the letter, but there was a letter that went out and told Joe Biden, said, hey, if you want our support, you have to pick a black woman. Because at first he just said it was going to be a woman. So Amy Klobuchar and other people were still like being considered. I think Amy like eventually took her name out of the running, but I think that's because there was one of the Black Lives Matter people who they were uplifting, and no. I think it was something with Chauvin or something. I think it was like something that tied back to her, and she decided to just dip out because she was getting some heat. So she removed herself from consideration. But Joe Biden was like, okay, I'll pick a black woman, and I still don't think out of the list that they were talking about, I still don't think he should have put Kamala. But I've said this before, and I wrote an article about this. My theory was Democrats pushing Kamala and Joe Biden in case Trump was just absolutely unstoppable and they had to lose. Joe Biden is so up there in age and Kamala is terrible and all kinds of fronts that if they lost and were sort of scarred forever politically because of their loss, that they wouldn't be losing much. That there's still hope for like Booker or Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar and other people. So they were the ones that were worthy to be sacrificed in case Trump was absolutely unstoppable. But they moved heaven and earth to stop Trump. Oh my gosh, heaven and earth. So my opinion is they probably could have gotten just about a lot of other people that were on their bench through if they were willing to do all the same crazy things that they did. So it really didn't need to be Biden. So my opinion is they picked Biden and they picked Kamala because they were worth risking. But there's other examples like why isn't Michael Eric Dyson considered a coon? And Michael Eric Dyson, I talked about him I think it was last week, or if not the week before. He talked about the new lieutenant governor of Virginia, Winsome Sears, and said a black mouth is moving, but white supremacist ideas are coming through. So he said that about her. He said about Cameron. He said that about, man, he said some terrible things about Clarence Thomas, Kanye, and he just repeats the same things over and over again. And yet he's the kind of person, the guy from The Bachelor who got kicked off, who was the host for the longest time. I'm like, oh my gosh, if they can cancel him, they can cancel anybody, basically. I'm like, oh my gosh, the Bachelor guy is gone. Before they fired him, ABC had him going through some kind of indoctrination training, like a racial re-education camp, it kind of seemed like. And Michael Eric Dyson was the one who was counseling him. And I'm like, why go to a racist? Michael Eric Dyson called Jordan Peterson a mean, mad white man. So this isn't a good person, but why isn't someone like that a coon? Because he's spouting all the sort of things that, the left is spouting. He's not, he puts them in a pretty different way because he, I guess, owns a thesaurus, but he's just a puppet that goes on MSNBC to spout their narrative. And their narrative is really not new. I mean, if you read Color, Communism, Common Sense, you know that the sort of propaganda that they spin is the same kind they've been spinning for years. They appeal to certain black people. They use racial stuff to get them kind of spitting out kind of communistic stuff. And no matter how black you are, your blackness cannot supersede communism. It's a really fascinating book. If you haven't read it, I would check it out. It's really cool. And I think you can get it online, actually, like without paying. I think the PDF is available. But it's, it's not that expensive either. It's an interesting book just to see how deep the web is. And it makes you understand how crazy things are today. So I don't get why they're so quick to call black Republicans goons when you got people who shill out for money, shill out for narrative, have no regard to the facts. And maybe they feel that way because they think so many black conservatives talk the same or are the same. But just there's so many ways people are different if you care to see. We have similar ideology, but we don't all agree on all the same issues. We wouldn't explain things the same way. We don't all have the same backgrounds. We don't all have the same experiences. So yeah, we're going to have similarities because we share the same ideology, but we're not always going to agree. And at the end of the day, I'm not the one who voted for a guy who said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. So if you voted for that guy, why aren't you not the coon? Now, that person who did the video is really young. I don't know how old she is. I don't know if she could even vote. There's a lot of young people who are done with a lot of big accounts. And I'm always curious people's age when they're saying really, really dumb stuff, because I'm like, I know this person is 18, 17, 15. And I'm usually right. I am 99% of the time I'm on the money with how gauging their age by how dumb their comments are. And several people have said, you're so ageist. I don't want it to be that way. I feel like I was a very smart kid. But we've lost some brain cells over time. We're going backwards. If you go to TikTok, you are not going to feel good about humanity. Let's I want to laugh with you guys. I saw this and I oh my gosh, I was dying laughing. Remember when Fergie sang the national anthem? I'm sorry you guys have to hear this, but someone put a book together about it, and it's glorious.
The Star Spangled Banner, Fergie.
Oh, say, can you see but so proudly wail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming in the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air gave through the night that a flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave? For the land of the free and the home of the brave. Let's play some basketball.
Oh, someone said, I love that someone made the effort to make an entire book. Oh my god, I love that. That it's probably one of my favorite TikToks now. It's up there. I don't think I have a solid like top 10 yet from accumulating from time. I have a lot of favorites, obviously, but oh my gosh, that just and the fact that they are selling the book. They are selling that book. You can buy that book. I don't know what you do with it other than laugh. It's like it's obviously a gag gift. It's I probably don't need to buy it. Like the laughter enough on for that TikTok sake was probably good enough. The Land of the Bree was probably where I lost it the most when I first saw it. Oh my gosh. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. That was so funny to me. That was so funny to me. Oh my gosh. And when she first butchered that song, it was like a national tragedy. People were so angry. People were so angry, and she said she's just trying to do something a little different, but and the faces of the basketball players was so hilarious. And you know what? I fear I guess I don't want to say fear. I'm always kind of apprehensive to sing this song, national anthem. It's a one song you really don't want to mess up, and that was like so bad. It was so bad. The other night I was at a Eisenhower dinner in Wayne County, and so I was asked if I would sing the national anthem. And I said sure. And so I don't really love to sing the national anthem. I mean, I'm honored to do it. I'm absolutely honored to do it. But of course, you're always not hesitant. I will jump at any opportunity, I guess, to do that. However, it you just don't want to mess it up. You don't want to mess it up. I'm honored to sing because I've literally seen veterans cry and come up and thank me for singing the song. I'm like, you fought for the nation. I sang a song. Like, there's no like comparison here. And so I'm honored to sing the song for people. But that's why you don't want to mess it up. There's just a lot of pressure. And I've never done it at least at a political event where it went awry. So I'm not as concerned about it as I used to be, but I just let it be known in a text message like, "Hey, I could I like sing God Bless America instead? Um I will totally do whatever you want me to, but I just want you to know I have a preference." And then I got a text back that said, "Can you do both?" I'm like, "Sure, I will do both." So I did both, and I did a good job. Not to do my own horn, but I did a good job, and people enjoyed it, and we're blessed. And that's what matters to me when I go there. That people are genuinely blessed, whether I'm getting up speaking or I'm singing. I want to bless the people in one way or another, whether I'm talking about Jesus, talking about politics. I want people to be blessed. So I was glad to do my job, but that is the song you don't want to screw up. And poor Fergie, poor America. I just wouldn't want that legacy. So I hope it's something she can laugh about now, because people were really, really going at her before. But again, you can buy that book, and I love that someone took the time to make that. Um, it was amazing, absolutely amazing. So I guess the last video that I have for you guys, oh, I guess it is about an hour. So the last video I want to talk about is this guy Garrison Hayes. He's done some critical race theory type videos, and I've replied to a few. He's never done a reply back to my replies, but this video he did got 1 million views, and so he's talking about the origin of the term whiteness. So I thought it was an interesting video, but obviously I think there's some misleading things or some context that needs to be discussed. So I want to go through a little bit of it tonight. Well, I guess not a little bit of it. We're gonna talk through it. So Garrison Hayes, he has a pretty big account, and like I said, the people have seen this video over 1 million times.
White people become white people. I'm so glad you asked. I find that most white people have no idea how they came to identify as white. And because they don't know that history, they often fundamentally misunderstand the push against whiteness and white supremacy.
Okay, so why why does there need to be such a push for people to understand the origin of this thing is my contention. So some time ago, it was the Washington Post put out a video about whiteness and apologizing for whiteness and why it was important and so on. And so it was a pretty ridiculous video, pretty racist video, just nonsensical. And I did a whole rebuttal to it watching it. And so please don't just watch the Washington Post video. You can watch my commentary about it. So you can go watch that on my Facebook page or somewhere. It's definitely on my YouTube page. But if you want to just watch the straight Washington Post video, you can. But there is really a push for people to relate to whiteness, this idea of whiteness, to cast light on it as a bad thing, and to apologize for the whiteness in the group of the whiteness. But I find it really interesting because white people don't actually have sort of an identity like that. He says there's an origin. And I think that's interesting. And he says eventually he'll get to why in the video, why it was kind of accumulated, this white identity. But this white identity and the idea of whiteness, I don't think it's really the same thing. And what the sort of things that they call whiteness are just crazy. And I mentioned this the other day when I was talking about Don Lemon and the Kyle Rittenhouse case, and the idea of whiteness and communism and so on. Which, by the way, critical race theory is tied to critical theory, and critical theory is tied to Marxism. They're interconnected. So this idea of whiteness, last year, the African American History Museum, the huge one by the Smithsonian that's in DC, that's like 4 levels, they put out a website, and they were talking about whiteness in America, and they put out an infographic talking about the idea of whiteness. Now, they did take this infographic down. Maybe the website doesn't exist either. I haven't looked in a while. But the internet's forever. I still have the document. So they had on here different traits of whiteness in the United States. And it refers to the ways white people and their traditions, attitudes, and the ways they have been normalized over time are now considered standard practices in the United States. And since white people still hold most of the institutional power in America, we have all internalized some aspects of white culture, including people of color. So, um, you can be a black person and still identify with these white traits because hey, they're the majority and they built America, right? What's crazy is it seems like there's this negative stigma for whiteness, right? So but on this document there's a ton of great stuff on here. Actually, just about all of it is fantastic. So um it seems to me like whiteness is a good thing if these are traits of whiteness. I mean, that the individual is a primary rugged individualism. The individual is a primary unit. That self-reliance, independence, the individuals assume to be in control of their environment. You get what you deserve. Those are good concepts. The family structure, that the nuclear family, father, mother, children, husband is the breadwinner. um you know in our society that's kind of not so much, I guess, with women being competitive, but I um we can talk about feminism another day. Wife is a homemaker. Children should have their own rooms, be independent. um obj- Emphasis on scientific method, objective, rational, linear thinking. So objective, rational, linear thinking is a trait of whiteness. Because like Asians in like Korea and Japan don't have that. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It's so racist. This is so racist. These are traits of whiteness. And it just goes on. Here's another part of it. The religion one is really wonky. That Christianity is the norm. Anything other than Judeo-Christian tradition is foreign. And no tolerance for from the single god concept. So if you're really stuck on this idea of being a Christian and you're not open to there being like a million gods or something, that is an idea of whiteness. What? People are so pressed to remind you that Jesus isn't white, that Christianity isn't a white man's. No, it seems like they want to say Jesus isn't white to like they figure it'll trigger white people. But it's like, dude, it's not a white man's religion. So how is this deviation from a single god concept? How is it a sign from whiteness? How's it a sign from whiteness? The Abrahamic faiths are not conducted by white people, whether it's Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. Talking the most major religions in the world. They just hate Christianity. They just hate Christianity because they're communists. And there's other ones that are just really crazy. I mean, follow rigid time schedules. That one's a little funny. That wealth equals worth. Your job is who you are. That respect authority. That you respect authority. That's an idea of whiteness. That's an idea of whiteness. And aesthetics. This one's funny. A man's attractiveness is based on economic status, power, and intellect. What? If that's a sign of whiteness, I'll take that. I think that's a good thing when women are attracted to men who have something going for themselves. Are we supposed to be attracted to broke losers who are stupid? This is why people flipped their minds when they saw this document. And so, and then it gets worse. Well, I think that was probably the worst section, but I mentioned this yesterday because we were talking about Kyle Rittenhouse and Don Lemon's commentary on it, how he said people were entitled to feel that they can just go out there and protect their property, their country, and so on. And a lot of people are talking about Rittenhouse and the fact that he had a gun out there, and that means that he was, I don't know, looking for trouble. Like, just because you have a gun doesn't mean that you're looking for trouble. And so on this idea of whiteness, you see they have intent counts on there and protect property and entitlement. So that at this point, you could probably are like, oh my gosh, these people are communists. Who made this? Like, if you want to protect your property, that is an idea of whiteness. So if you look at that document, you could probably say, hey, it kind of seems like whiteness ain't such a bad thing if that's what it is. So why do we have to reject whiteness then? Because there's some good things. Or is it that we want you to reject whiteness and then reject all these good things in society, like want to protect your property because they're communists and they don't want you to feel good about property? And honestly, I guess there's a lot of people who sort of feel that way. Looking at how people defended some of the riots and stuff last year, and looking at their commentary around Rittenhouse's case, and there's people who know better, but they just want to push it because they can't abandon their narrative. It's so bizarre. It really is bizarre. So, again, this idea of whiteness I don't think being white or considering yourself white and this idea of whiteness is the same thing. It's really not. Because would they argue that being black and an idea of blackness? Now, I know they think there's an idea of blackness, but that's because they're racist. Like a serious idea of blackness. Like, you could joke around and say, oh, you can't play spades. Like, those are stereotypes, but like an idea of blackness to like actually plot out. I know there's people who feel that way, but it's a racist idea. It's a racist idea. But we're willing to separate white, this identity of white, and then this idea of whiteness and what that encompasses. So just so you guys know and are aware, white people don't see themselves as like their being white as being central to their identity, not compared to like other races. So this is done from Pew Research some time ago, but you can see, and hopefully you can see on there that only like 15% of white people feel that their race is a part of their identity. And black people have the absolute highest. I think that's at 74% where I can see it. And then it's like Hispanics, and then it's Asians, but white people have the absolute lowest amount. They don't see that as being central to their identity, not like other groups do. So this idea that people are grouped together and it's so important to them being white, it's just not a thing. Even like white supremacist groups, they used to have a lot of power back in the day, but I mean, when Richard Spencer had some kind of convention, there was like more press there than like people. I mean, they always try to inflame these stories. Like, they have to people have to make hate crime hoaxes today. It's just not a prevalent thing. It's just really not a prevalent thing. So the constant need for people to try to tie white people and have them to have the central idea of whiteness is just bizarre to me. I mean, they want to racialize the world, make it so hyper racial. And I guess the last point before I'll let him continue on is that with critical race theory, one of their tenets is that race is a construct, and most people can agree with that tenet. Which it kind of undermines some of their other tenets, but that is one of their tenets of critical race theory. So if race is a concept, why can't we just let it go? If the white identity is a concept, why are you trying to marry all of the white people to this idea of whiteness, this identity of being white? Why are you trying to tie them to all this history that has nothing to do with the majority of these people anyway? Why can't we just let it go? Why can't we just be like, bygones be got bygones? Let's restart anew. Why can't we just let the race thing go? Because there's profit in what they do in the race baiting. They could always decide to just let it go, but they can't do that. they can't do that. So I'm gonna let him continue on.
Supremacy. You see, white people didn't exist before the middle of the 17th century, as in the middle of the 1600s. And if your mind immediately went to the year 1619, then you're on to something. More on that later. And this isn't to say that
1619 project is garbage, but let's keep going.
lighter-skinned people didn't exist. Of course they did. Europe is a real place with real people. But those people didn't identify as white people. They were Englishmen, Dutch, Germanic, Slavs, Greeks, Gauls, Scythians. Princeton history professor Dr. Nell Irvin Painter chronicles the invention of this diasporic, pan-European white identity in her book, The History of White People. She demonstrates how white identity was constructed, primarily as a justification for the enslavement of African people.
So, of course, I haven't read that book, and it sounds interesting. I'll have to look more into it. But just FYI, I'm sure everyone is aware of the fact that everyone was enslaving everyone. I mean, the term slave is from an enslavement of white people. Like, so just to I guess it would make sense for that identity to make it up to use racism in that kind of way to justify owning black people. But is everyone aware of the fact that black people did own other free black people owned slaves in the United States? Like, that was a thing. Just so we're aware, a lot of people enslaved a lot of people, and they enslaved their own people who look just like them. So tying everything to race, everything's not always about race. And this idea of like white as I'll let him talk a little bit more.
This was from the very beginning constructed to be the antithesis of blackness. Enslavers needed some moral and philosophical cover for what they were doing to African people. And so the myth of whiteness, moral purity, superiority, ruling destiny was born. And as such, whiteness is and always has been a political identity.
Everything with race is always critical race theory acknowledges that race is a construct. Okay. Again, we can always decide to drop it right now. We could decide to drop it right now. We could, but they don't want to, and they want to associate guilt. Isn't that crazy? That they want to associate guilt because of your skin color, not even like your heritage. There's so many people who came to America after their ancestors after the Civil War that had nothing to do with slavery. There are people who came off the boat to go. The Irish people. There was a song that was played in Gangs of New York about how people got off the boats and like said, you know, get your gun, go fight for Lincoln. Or I don't know, I don't remember if it was fight for Lincoln or die for Lincoln. But people had to do that. And if anyone played racial politics, especially back then, it was the Democrats. Obviously, if you go back and look at some of their old cartoons that they had, political cartoons for the Democrat Party, and how they would draw the Negro and mock the Negro, and the term Black Republican is a slur, right? It's a slur towards white Republicans. It's because I guess they figured if they could call them a Black Republican, like, oh, they like those blacks, so they're Black Republicans. So I don't advise white people just go around calling themselves Black Republicans, but just know your history, I guess. Because the idea of them standing up for people to not be enslaved and to have rights and so on was just so disgusting to them. They thought they could just throw the term black, and that would be, I guess, so offensive. And the Democrats, they could appeal and did appeal to some white people from just playing racial identity politics, because they'd be like, those Republicans, they like those black people. Well, you may be poor, dumb, and nobody likes you, but you know what? We like you more than them niggers. So that was their appeal to the Irish, especially like in areas like New York and stuff. And that was their appeal to rule not young Democrats, but Democrats in the South for a very long time. And the South started to get more Republican as more economic opportunities opened up, and that's when you started seeing stuff flip. I mean, like, it's just really this more recent generation that is voting more Republican the South when they really started taking over, you know. The party switch thing is a myth, but Democrats were the ones who were really pushing racial politics. And eventually they were like, oh my gosh, the tide is turning. We got to get these blacks on our side. And then they started just dishing out free stuff. And the rest is kind of history. But yeah, I can concur that people play racial identity politics all the time. But I'm not going to live in a la la land and pretend that it's not the Democrats who haven't been the ones doing that and profiting off of that for forever. For forever.
Fraternal Order, a loyalty rewards program that depends entirely on all of its members agreeing to maintain the myth. And even though this myth has been thoroughly debunked, many are working overtime to this very day to maintain its power. Like and follow for more.
So who's working overtime for whiteness to maintain its racial power? Because I'm pretty sure that it's people like him. It's people like him who are pushing the idea of whiteness. Again, white people do not see themselves as some kind of crucial, being white a part of their crucial identity. That's just not a thing. I mean, I guess it's a thing for like 15%, but it's not what drives them. It's not their makeup. And another thing that's pretty interesting, I started doing some TikToks talking about eugenics and the minimum wage, and how it's how and living wage too, because essentially when they started to push minimum wage, the economists knew that it was going to cost people jobs, but they thought it'd be a social good because they thought some people were just didn't deserve it to work, I guess. and they didn't like wage competition. So let's say there's I don't know, let's say for all purposes, it's a white guy who thinks they're too good to work for a certain wage that's lower than they would like, that is lower than the standard of what they want. And they won't work beneath a living wage, because this term has been around for a while. It's not something Bernie Sanders invented. So they don't want to work for a living wage. So a black person might say, oh gosh, I'll work for that wage though. It's lower than maybe I'd like, but I can take care of my family here. And they'd be like, these darn Negroes undercutting us privileged people. So they wanted to make sure that they could get rid of competitive wages. And they knew that it would work because they did in other parts of the world. And the economists knew that it would make people unemployed. Actually, someone who worked for what's his last name? Someone who worked under the Woodrow Wilson administration thought it would be better if these people were just unemployed and couldn't get work and were just living off of the government teat. Because if they could subsidize them and I guess control them, at least they wouldn't be left up to their own wiles and just, I don't know, providing for themselves, providing for their families, and then breeding. So it's pretty wild how much eugenics shaped America in the progressive era. It's a fascinating thing to read about. And Evie magazine did an article about it some time ago, and it was well sourced, and it was an interesting article. And so I've been going through those sources and looking at it, and so people have found it pretty fascinating. So I did one TikTok about it, and then I did another, and people are like, teach us. So I'm going through these things that I'm reading about and just trying to like share it with the people. But Thomas Sowell talked about how once they instituted the minimum wage, how that left a lot of young Black people unemployed. So and they knew that would happen, and that happened under FDR, their very progressive president hero, who they uplift and just absolutely adore. And Biden's wanted to be the next FDR, and they love their progressive president. But there was a lot of bad policies for minority that was passed then. Like when you hear critical race theory and you hear about negative effects from Black people, what's the first thing the left brings up? What's the absolute first thing that the left brings up to explain why people have poor neighborhoods, poor schools, why we need equity instead of equality? What's the first thing people bring up? Redlining. Who was president when that got instituted? FDR. So if critical race theory was honest history, why aren't we honestly looking at the actions that were done by individuals? Because they want to tie all white people together and talk about whiteness. And if we don't talk about it, then we're just pushing a system. Again, if race is a construct, you can decide to let it go anytime you want to. You really can, but they don't want to. They don't want to. So anyway, I hope you learned something today. I hope we had an interesting time today talking about the TikToks, and some were kind of sad, some were funny, and the Fergie one had me dying the first time I saw it. Oh my gosh. I hope you guys enjoyed that. So thank you guys for watching. We'll be back next Saturday, hopefully with a guest on I'll try to have one of my TikTok friends on here on next Saturday. So make sure that you're watching next Saturday, but we'll be back here Monday at 4 p.m. to talk about the news of the day. I'm sure there'll probably be some more Rittenhouse kind of stuff going on. More COVID stuff probably. I'm so glad that the courts are pausing that order. And again, let your places of employment know that the government is getting blocked on that. So if they want to push it as business, they're pushing it as a business. And at the end of the day, they feel that they can do what they want to do, but let them know that they're making that decision as a company. And maybe if enough people are letting them know that they're aware that they don't have the umbrella of the government, that they'll be like, we don't want to open up ourselves to some kind of lawsuit, since we can't say the government made me do it anymore. Thank you, the Lady Delirium. I'm glad you enjoyed the show. Thank you guys in the comments. I am seeing your comments. Makes it all a more lively show for me. So thank you for being here. And I'll see you guys on Monday for Black Tea News.